Hi, love. So, as promised, I wanted to give a quick note-taking in the research process lesson as an update in terms of like our new senior research investigation versus the old way of doing things. So, this is how to make sense of what you're exploring. So, note-taking is important in research, as you know, and as we've talked about in terms of the inquiry cycle, how important it is to do the investigation, but also like how to both read for understanding and make understanding for yourself. So we're going to look at why it's important, two important features of note taking, and examples of how to take notes, and how to keep your notes user friendly. So it's important to take good notes to avoid unintentional plagiarism. Focus on what's important while you're reading. And again, we've already started to do a little bit of work with this, like calling out the key ideas, finding the important quotes, important paraphrases, pieces of information that are going to help you answer your research question. And again, looking for what's important, but not limiting yourself only with confirmation bias to answer what you already kind of have a hunch about or your assumptions. It also helps you understand and remember the material and make connections. We're starting to realize that this type of research and making literature reviews and really reading in this way is much harder than just quickly finding a quote that we can jam into a 5-page paper without doing a lot of reading or thinking. It also allows you, if you take good notes, to construct whatever assignment you're doing. So in this case, it's our literature review. Provide a personal record of what you've discovered. We talk about this a lot in AP, right? Like you don't want to have to go back and read the thing 14 times. You want to do a really good first read so that you're representing not only what they say, but also what you say about what you're reading. And in the end, it really helps you save time later on. First, it's really important to be meticulous and accurate. Recording necessary details as soon as you start taking notes is uber important, especially if you're taking notes off of a page. So if you're taking notes online or in Diigo, or if you're taking it in a notebook, it's really important to note like what are the in-text citations that you will use later, whether it's for a paraphrase or a quotation. By doing that, you don't have to go back and look for like, what page was that on? Oh, I can't find it. If you just do a really good job the first time of staying meticulous and accurate with how you're recording your details, you're going to be all set when it comes to the synthesis part of this research investigation project. It helps to have a clear system so you know which notes are paraphrases of someone else's ideas, direct quotations from the text, and then your own ideas. So whether that looks like you have a different coding system, maybe you color code, or where you put it on the page, or if you're using Cornell Notes, whatever you end up doing, just make sure you yourself have a clear system so you know how you're working. Remember, if you photocopy an article or chapter, it's important to include page numbers and any information to be able to cite the text. If you make notes from a website, it's important to keep the URL and get a jump on your works cited entry. The more you can do this stuff ahead of time, the better off you are. The second kind of feature of really good note-taking, other than being meticulous and accurate, is to be active, not passive. We talk a lot about this in class. I make you get something out to underline, ask questions in the margin, interrogate the text, not just highlight. Passive note takers underline, cut and paste, copy direct quotes without putting them into their own words or thinking about them. Write notes on everything because they're not sure what's important, and don't evaluate or be critical of those sources. And so, as you know, we have moved into this new part of the senior research investigation to make sure that some of this passive note-taking and thinking doesn't happen. Instead, we're asking you to be active researchers, to think about what you want out of the research, right? So that's your question. That's when you did your context. You're setting your intention. You have your research question, your inquiry question. So you have an idea of where you want to go. You're not closed off to other possibilities, right? We know it's organic. We know it moves. You may find a question that is more compelling for you as you begin researching, but you can't find that unless you're reading actively. Look for answers to the questions that you have about the topic, and don't be afraid to ask more questions, right? So what are those little things nagging at you? What are your hunches? Like, follow those, and again, look for what's out there so you can find the sort of like 6 best sources that are sitting at that table that we talk about. Look for connections in the sources, like what are the voices around the table saying? How are they pushing back on one another? How are they contradicting one another? What is one source adding that maybe another isn't? If you have a lot of quantitative research, right, numbers and statistics and facts, maybe you want to find a qualitative one to look at from a different sort of perspective or angle. So it's important to continue to look and listen for what are those sources saying to one another, especially thinking about how you're going to organize your literature review. It's important to write notes mostly in your own words, focusing on your explanation of what something means. To break that down, right? We talk about interpreting and thinking about implications. That part is super essential, especially for the next part, the next phase, or next, I guess, phase 2, part B. But it's also important to do it the first time, like we practiced with the To Kill a Mockingbird article. Don't forget to record notes only when it's important to have exact words. We talked about the difference between quoting and paraphrasing, so just keep that in mind. Just going to zoom through this. You can pause and do some more investigation. You also have links on our document. The Cornell Notes is a really great method for any subject, whether it be science or whatever. In the context of research, it's a nice way to isolate your thinking on one page. On the left, you're putting keywords and identifying themes and patterns, where you're just really calling out those key ideas that lead to that central idea. On the right, you're breaking them down and putting them into your own words, pulling out quotes and paraphrases and things that you think are important to help you with that. And then at the bottom, big space at the bottom is to comment on the source as a whole. So this is really kind of like ideal for setting you up for success with your literature review. It's organized for those of you who need to be organized, and you can be really concise. And you could do more than one page for the source, but you keep them together. You put your MLA citations, keep it organized in that way, and it'll be awesome. So this is a way to be meticulous and accurate and organized. Note cards is kind of a tried and true, with each sort of card represents one main idea. These are not my jam. They may be yours. Just be sure that you follow this guide, and you can look around at all of the different pink boxes that help you kind of like figure out how to organize them. So note cards is definitely an option. Another way to think about this is kind of like a different kind of note card, where you cite something, quote, paraphrase, and comment. So if you know that you're going to take chunks of information, this is kind of like that. This gives you a pretty established way to do that: cite, quote, paraphrase, comment. So if you need to pause and look at that, you can totally do that. This is something that I do, and this only shows the sort of beginning part. I did a lot of research and began to develop like a hybrid model of like what I'm noticing. So I would color code things, then I would put them on a different page, then I would kind of do what we did in the previous slide, and think about like how would I paraphrase, what parts do I need to comment on, and I leave myself little notes as I'm reading so I don't have to stop and do all of that thinking right away. And then I start to look at how things are talking. So if the yellows across the pieces, they're all kind of saying they're in the same realm. The pinks might be contradicting one another, whatever. So you can create a color coding system. That's kind of like what I did. Google Keep and Symbaloo are really awesome. I'm just going to show a little bit of this video so you can find it yourself. You just have to. Hi guys, so I just wanted to introduce you all, if you don't know about it already, Google Keep for Chrome, and it's an extension. So if you just go to the Chrome extension store, you can just type that in and add it to Chrome. It will pop up as this little question mark, excuse me, not a question mark, a light bulb, and I'm going to show you how you can use this because we are moving sort of to a Google world, and we use these Chromebooks often. So all right, so I'm going to zoom past this because I have only 30 seconds to finish. So the Google Keep is a really great way to do that. Symbaloo is another way, but just really stay organized with your sources. Diigo is another way to do that. I made a video for that. I'm not going to play it for you, but that'll be part of our playlist here of of lectures and resources. Diigo is a non-Google tool for online note-taking, and you can see it actually up here. It's a little D and it